Let's just jump right in. Today, we're unpacking a real-life corporate thriller for this explainer. The big theme? Why EDR is simply not enough anymore. Picture this. Your company has literally done everything by the book. You've poured millions into top-tier security, you've got a fully staffed SOC doing 24/7 monitoring, AI behavioral analysis, the whole shebang, right? And then, boom. Out of nowhere, it's a random Tuesday morning and every single screen in the office just goes black. A second later, that dreaded message pops up. Your files have been encrypted. The whole company? Ransomed. It absolutely makes you stop and think. How does this keep happening? It is the multi-million-dollar question that's keeping CISOs awake at night. Why do organizations armed to the teeth with state-of-the-art EDR still get completely taken down by ransomware? Well, we're going to peel back the curtain on a kind of uncomfortable truth today. Because when you actually look under the hood of these breaches, it totally rewrites the playbook on how we need to approach digital defense. The illusion of safety actually starts with the name itself. So many folks up in the C-suite think buying EDR is like buying an impenetrable force field. But look at the actual name, endpoint detection and response. The operative words there are detection and response. It is not an absolute perfect prevention tool. It's an alarm system, guys. It's not a 10-foot concrete wall. Let's map out the anatomy of a modern attack so you can see exactly why this matters. A real intrusion usually flows like this. A user clicks a bad phishing email, PowerShell executes, a payload drops, the attacker moves laterally across the network, and finally, files get encrypted. The massive, glaring issue here? Most EDR systems don't even start throwing red flags until step 4 or 5. And honestly, by the time you're at step 4, that hacker is already way too deep inside your network. So why is EDR showing up late to its own party? Well, the threat landscape has just completely shifted. Back in the day, old-school ransomware would drop an obvious, malicious exe file onto your hard drive. EDR spots that a mile away. But modern attacks? The top-tier crews out there aren't writing traditional viruses anymore. They don't use flashy malware that sets off bells and whistles. No, they just hide in plain sight. They use an invisible and honestly brilliant tactic called living off the land, or LOTL. With an LOTL attack, these cybercriminals completely skip the custom malware phase. Instead, they just weaponize the software and tools that are already baked into your operating system, tools that your system implicitly trusts by default. Yeah, instead of bringing their own lockpicks, they just use your keys. They are weaponizing the exact same system administration tools your own IT department relies on every single day. We're talking PowerShell, WMI, PXX, SSH, RDP, even Python. Every single one of these is a totally legitimate, approved program, and that completely changes the rules of the game for your defense software. And this leads us to EDR's ultimate dilemma, which is context. Think about it. If your IT admin naturally uses PowerShell to run network updates, and a hacker uses that exact same PowerShell to manipulate the network, how is the EDR supposed to know the difference? Trying to distinguish normal employee behavior from a devastating intruder when they're using the exact same legal tools is ridiculously hard. To the EDR, the hacker just looks like an IT admin doing their job. Sometimes they look even more normal than actual employees. But wait, the rabbit hole goes deeper than just the software failing. The real fatal flaw for most of these enterprises isn't a lack of EDR. It's what we call a privilege explosion. This is a massive structural weakness. You've got companies handing out domain admin rights like candy, shared service accounts everywhere, passwords that haven't been changed in years, and wide-open network drives. Because of this totally unchecked access, a hacker only needs to compromise one single machine to bring down the whole house. And here's the industry's dirty little secret. Even with top-notch EDR pumping out alerts, nobody is actually reading them. Why? Alert fatigue. A typical SOC gets slammed with thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of alerts daily. It is literally impossible for human analysts to review them all. So what happens? The actual devastating attack gets perfectly camouflaged in a mountain of everyday noise. Attackers know this. They exploit this human element ruthlessly, which brings us to the classic midnight attack. Ransomware crews absolutely love striking in the dead of night, usually around 3 a.m. Why? Because the SOC analysts went home, IT is asleep, and there's nobody awake to instantly isolate an infected laptop. They get hours of completely uninterrupted time to just wander laterally across the network. Sometimes they'll lurk around for weeks, mapping everything out, waiting for that perfect, quiet moment to pull the trigger. Plus, we really need to remember that these massive breaches almost never start with some Hollywood-style complex firewall hack. They start by hacking human nature. They use incredibly simple, totally deceptive phishing prompts. A user gets a ping saying, "Hey, please relog in to Office 365," or "Your VPN expired," or maybe a fake payroll update. The user clicks, types in their password, and boom, legitimate credentials stolen. The hacker just logs in through the front door, and the EDR, it just sees a normal login. We really need to stop picturing a lone hacker in a hoodie chugging energy drinks in a basement. The reality is we are up against highly organized underground corporate cartels. Modern ransomware groups operate like Fortune 500s. They've got dedicated penetration testing teams, custom malware developers, initial access brokers who just sell network entry points, professional negotiators, and dedicated customer service for their victims. I'm not kidding, they even track performance KPIs. You aren't fighting a kid, you're fighting a multinational tech company. So, surviving this highly professional, deeply entrenched threat, it requires a total mindset shift. We have got to abandon this myth that buying one expensive security product gives you total immunity. If you genuinely want to stop ransomware, you have to look way past the EDR agent on your laptop and build a comprehensive, holistic architecture. What actually works in the real world is a strict defense-in-depth strategy. It's a multi-layered approach. We're talking zero-trust frameworks, strict network segmentation, so if one area falls, the fire doesn't spread, mandatory multi-factor authentication, patching, and enforcing the principle of least privilege everywhere. And honestly, perhaps most importantly, running rigorous personnel drills. Because at the end of the day, your people are your primary firewall, and usually your weakest link. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, if all else fails, we have backups. Lots of companies treat backups as their ultimate safety net. But here's the harsh reality. A professional ransomware cartel knows exactly how you think. The very first thing they do when they get admin rights isn't encrypting your files. Nope. They actively hunt down your backups and wipe them out. If your backups are connected to your main network, they are just as dead as your primary data. For a backup strategy to actually save your skin, it absolutely has to meet 3 non-negotiable rules. 1, it must be totally offline, like physically air-gapped from the network. 2, it has to be immutable, meaning once that data is written, nobody, not even a domain admin, can modify or delete it. And 3, it needs to be stored off-site. If your backup system misses even one of these, it's just going to get encrypted right alongside everything else. And looking just a little bit ahead, the pressure on EDR is only going to skyrocket. AI has officially entered the chat. Imagine a piece of malware that uses artificial intelligence to automatically morph its code, bypass security rules on the fly, and perfectly mimic how your specific employees behave. Hackers are already using AI to spin up incredibly complex PowerShell scripts. Traditional detection rules are going to be stressed like never before. Ultimately, fixing this crisis means zooming out and looking at the big picture. Why do companies with expensive EDR still get ransomed? The answer is tough to swallow, but it's true. Cybersecurity is never solved by just writing a check for a product. The real lifesavers are strict privilege management, constant human awareness, segmented network architecture, and bulletproof backups. Underestimating this highly organized, corporate-level enemy is literally the most expensive mistake a business can make. So I'll leave you with this. Is your organization just relying on a tool, or are you actually building a true defense? That wraps up our explainer for today. Stay secure out there.